Kate, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, and thank you all for being here. My name is Kate McKeon, and I'm a Senior Assistant Attorney General with the Oregon Department of Justice. On behalf of Attorney General Rosenblum, who unfortunately couldn't be here this afternoon, we're so glad that you were able to attend this program to learn more about SAVE, the Saving on a Valuable Education Plan. General Rosenblum cares deeply about addressing student debt. Combined, Oregonians have more than $18.9 billion in student loan debt. With student debt numbers this large, it's easy to understand how student loans can turn into the obligation of a lifetime for individuals who are often just young adults with limited financial knowledge when they signed for these loans. While serving as Attorney General, General Rosenblum has held 3 national symposia on the student debt crisis, spearheaded a bill requiring Oregon colleges and universities to send students annual, easy-to-understand letters explaining the scope of their educational debt, helped to pass the Student Loan Borrower Bill of Rights, which created our Student Loan Ombuds program, and settled with Navient, holding them liable for their unlawful student loan practices, and obtaining relief for more than 6,000 borrowers in Oregon. Today, you'll learn about the SAVE program. Millions of borrowers have already enrolled in this program, the most affordable student loan repayment program ever. From $0 a month payments to loan forgiveness, the program has helped countless borrowers stay current with their student loans while not compromising their financial stability. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rich Cordray. Rich is the Chief Operating Officer for the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Federal Student Aid. His office manages a federal student loan portfolio valued at more than $1.6 trillion, representing more than 45 million consumers. And because Rich is a Spartan and I'm a Wolverine, I'm going to have to turn it over by saying, go blue.
All right. Well, you got me there. Thank you, Kate. And to everyone who helped pull together this event, as Kate said, I'm Richard Cordray, Chief Operating Officer of Federal Student Aid. And we're glad to join with you in Oregon today because states have long played a key role in higher education oversight. And we're working closely with state officials to enhance consumer protections for student loan borrowers. Attorney General Rosenblum, as Kate just described, has been at the forefront of state action on student loan debt, and Oregon has been a great partner in our joint efforts to promote a safer student loan market. Today, we will discuss the newest repayment plan to make student loans more affordable, which is known as the Saving on a Valuable Education Plan, or the SAVE plan for short. As you well know, federal student aid is extremely important to deliver the benefits of higher education to more people in this country. This matters to individual students, to their families, to our communities, and to our nation's future. Over the years, the federal programs to help Americans finance higher education have grown substantially, so that now more than 45 million borrowers carry some amount of student loan debt. Some of you in this meeting, and many others you know, may be among those paying down federal student loans, but have not yet taken advantage of our most affordable payment option. For many, the SAVE plan may be just the option you need. At different times, the department has offered various income-driven repayment plans. Known as IDR plans, they are designed to help ease the financial burden of federal student loans. They're a little bit confusing because there have been a number of plans over the years, but the newest IDR plan, the SAVE plan, launched last August, and it's designed to offer the lowest monthly payments yet among all the IDR plans for most borrowers. In particular, the SAVE plan typically offers the most beneficial repayment terms for low and middle income earners, public service workers, community college graduates, and those who originally borrowed $12,000 or less in student loans. The SAVE plan also affords another important benefit. Those making their required payments do not have their loan balance increase from unpaid interest. As long as you keep up with your monthly payments, which can be as low as $0, the government covers the cost of any leftover monthly interest that your monthly payment doesn't cover. That's extremely significant. We've seen many student loan debt amounts balloon over the years. The SAVE plan, though, protects borrowers from runaway interest that can take their balances far beyond the amount of the loans they originally took out. Another benefit of the SAVE plan provides early loan forgiveness for borrowers who originally took out $12,000 or less in student loans and have been in repayment for as little as 10 years. For every additional $1,000 they originally borrowed above $12,000 up to $21,000, don't mean to get complicated here, borrowers with undergraduate loans can still receive full forgiveness after an additional year of payment. For example, a borrower who originally borrowed $12,500 in undergraduate loans would be eligible for forgiveness under SAVE after 11 years worth of payments. Borrowers with original loan balances greater than $21,000 who sign up for SAVE will receive full forgiveness after between 20 and 25 years, depending on whether they have undergraduate loans only, or graduate loans, or a mix of undergraduate and graduate loans. Some borrowers have already signed up for the SAVE plan and received this early forgiveness. Just last month, President Biden announced the approval of $1.2 billion in early loan forgiveness for almost 153,000 borrowers currently enrolled in the SAVE plan. Notably, the early forgiveness benefit of SAVE was originally planned to go into effect in July, but we implemented it early in February, months ahead of schedule, to deliver more student loan forgiveness to borrowers. We recently emailed many thousands of borrowers who could become eligible for automatic early forgiveness simply by signing up for the SAVE plan, and we expect to continue those outreach efforts. More generally, we've been aggressively promoting the SAVE plan, and those efforts are paying off. At this point, more than 7.5 million borrowers are now enrolled in SAVE to get a lower monthly payment. In fact, 4.3 million of those enrolled in SAVE now have qualified for a $0 monthly payment, which I think you'll agree is quite affordable. Moving forward, the department expects to implement the remaining benefits of the SAVE plan in July, which will further reduce monthly payments from 10% of the borrower's discretionary income to just 5% for those with undergraduate loans, among other benefits. Borrowers who meet the eligibility criteria for forgiveness under the SAVE plan will have their loans automatically forgiven with no action needed on their part, and the department will continue to identify and discharge the loans on a regular basis. Additionally, if a borrower applies for an IDR plan, including SAVE, on studentaid.gov and agrees to securely share their tax information, then their IDR plan will automatically be recertified the next time recertification is due, which makes it simpler and easier to stay on the plan. Given these important features, if you're a federal student loan borrower, check out the SAVE plan at studentaid.gov/save and consider signing up immediately. To our state partners, advocacy organizations, and other stakeholders, help us spread the word far and wide about how many borrowers can get more affordable monthly payments and loan forgiveness through the SAVE plan. The Biden-Harris administration is sending a resounding message to borrowers. Federal student loans should enable you to achieve your educational goals, not become a burden, and the SAVE plan reaffirms that priority. We will now hear from Rachel Gittleman of the FSA Ombudsman Office to learn more about the SAVE plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cordray, and welcome everyone to our All About SAVE webinar. First off, I'd like to echo Mr. Cordray's thanks to our partners, the Oregon Attorney General's Office, the Oregon Department of Financial Services, and the Student Borrower Protection Center. My name is Rachel Gittleman, and I work on the Stakeholder Engagement Group in the Ombudsman's Office for Federal Student Aid. I'm excited to be here today to tell you about the department's most affordable repayment plan yet, and how enrolling in SAVE can help lead to forgiveness earlier than expected. Next slide, please. A few logistical reminders before we start. You won't be able to unmute or turn on camera, so please use the chat feature if you're having technical issues, or close out Zoom and rejoin the event. This webinar is equipped with closed captions, which you can access via the meeting controls toolbar. Please note we will be recording the webinar, and finally, please use the Q&A function for all questions. My colleagues from the Ombudsman's Office and the Oregon Student Loan Ombudsman will be answering questions throughout the webinar. Following the presentation, we will have time for live question and answers as well. Next slide. Today, we are going to begin with a student loan overview, followed by information about the newest and most affordable repayment, income-driven repayment plan, Saving on a Valuable Education, or SAVE. Then we'll discuss ways the administration is making it easier to reach forgiveness through the one-time payment count adjustment and public service loan forgiveness programs. Finally, if you have loans in default, you can still access SAVE through a great one-time program called Fresh Start, which we will discuss at the end of today's presentation. Next slide. First, we will go over the major types of federal student loans. Next slide. Most student loan borrowers have direct loans. These loans are made directly by the Department of Education and are serviced by one of the 4 contracted companies: Aidvantage, Ed Financial, Mohila, and Nelnet. Borrowers may also have Federal Family Education Loans, or FFEL loans. These are older federal loans made before 2010 that were originated by banks and other financial institutions and are insured by the Department of Education. Some of these loans are now owned by the department, and some are still held by commercial entities. Finally, we have Perkins loans, which are loans made by colleges to students with exceptional financial need. The Perkins program ended in 2017, and the department owns some of these loans now. FFEL and Perkins loans can be consolidated into a new direct consolidation loan to gain access to SAVE and forgiveness programs, and we'll go over this later in the webinar. To find out what type of loan you have, check your studentaid.gov dashboard or call your servicer. Next slide. Under the Biden administration, the department has approved almost $138 billion in student loan forgiveness for nearly 3.9 million borrowers. Here are the most recent totals for borrowers who received loan forgiveness. Many borrowers received forgiveness due to total and permanent disability. Borrowers who were cheated by their schools, saw their schools close, or who were covered by related court settlements have also received forgiveness. And finally, the most recent cancellations are due to fixes to income-driven repayment plans, improvements to the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, and added benefits under the SAVE plan. We are going to dig into all 3 of these forgiveness programs in today's webinar, and I'm so excited to discuss them with you. Next slide. So, speaking of income-driven repayment plans, next slide. When borrowers first enter into repayment, they are automatically placed on a standard repayment plan, which allows for fixed payments made up to 10 years or between 10 and 30 years for consolidation loans. Now, for most borrowers, an income-driven repayment plan or an IDR plan is going to be the cheapest option, since IDR plans calculate monthly payment based on income and family size. Plus, when you're on an IDR plan, you're eligible for forgiveness after 20 or 25 years, depending on the type of loan you have. There are a few types of IDR plans: Saving on a Valuable Education, or SAVE, Pay as you Earn, or PAY, Income-Based Repayment, or IBR, and Income Contingent Repayment, or ICR. Now, for most borrowers, SAVE will be the most affordable option, but we'll walk through our loan simulator later in the presentation, which allows you to compare all options to choose the plan that works best for your financial situation. Next slide. Now we're going to dive into the exciting details about SAVE, the department's newest repayment plan. The SAVE plan replaced the revised Pay as you Earn plan, or REPAY plan. So borrowers that were on the REPAY plan have been automatically added to the SAVE plan and are receiving the benefits of the new plan. No further action is needed on the part of these borrowers. A SAVE plan, like other IDR plans, calculates your monthly payment based on income and family size. It typically offers lower monthly payments compared to other IDR plans. This is because the SAVE plan decreases monthly payments by increasing the income exemption from 150% to 225% of the poverty line. Now, you must have direct loans to enroll in SAVE. Parent Plus, FFEL, and Perkins loans are not eligible for SAVE, unfortunately, but we will discuss consolidation later, which allows borrowers with these types of loans to access SAVE. Next slide. There are many benefits to the new SAVE plan, which we're going to run through now. For most borrowers, as I've mentioned, SAVE will be the most affordable repayment plan. Many borrowers may even be able to have a monthly payment as low as $0. In addition, the SAVE plan eliminates 100% of remaining monthly interest after you make a full scheduled payment, even if that payment is $0. This means that if you make your monthly payment, your loan balance won't grow due to unpaid interest that accrued since your last payment. For example, if $50 in interest accumulates on your loans each month, and the expected monthly payment is $30, once you make that $30 payment, the remaining $20 will be covered by the government, so you won't see your your balance grow. Next slide. But wait, there are even more benefits to SAVE. When borrowers switch from a different IDR plan to the SAVE plan, interest on loans won't be added to the principal balance, unless you're switching from the income-based repayment plan. Spousal income is also excluded for borrowers who are married and filing taxes separately, removing the need for spouses to co-sign an IDR application. Finally, there are even more benefits in the works, so stay tuned for additional changes to the SAVE plan later this year. As of right now, there are 7.5 million borrowers enrolled in SAVE, of whom 4.3 million have a $0 payment. So especially for lower and middle income borrowers, the SAVE plan is the most affordable repayment plan and may put you on a path to earlier forgiveness. Next slide. So like I mentioned, if you are enrolled in the SAVE plan, your loans might be eligible for forgiveness after as few as 10 years of monthly payments rather than the 20 or 25 years under normal income-driven repayment forgiveness. Your eligibility for this shortened repayment term depends on how much you originally borrowed to attend school. That's why it's so important to enroll in SAVE, because you may be able to reach forgiveness so much earlier when enrolled in SAVE, but it does require action on your part. Next slide. These charts illustrate how borrowers with lower balances who are enrolled in SAVE can reach forgiveness earlier. The chart on the left shows the forgiveness timeline for borrowers with graduate loans or a mix of grad and undergrad loans. The chart on the right shows the timeline for borrowers with undergraduate loans only. So for those borrowers who borrowed less than $12,000 initially, you will reach forgiveness in just 10 years when you enroll in SAVE. Next slide. And in Oregon alone, more than 2,000 borrowers have already received more than $17 million in forgiveness so far through SAVE early cancellation. And the link provided here is a state-by-state breakdown, so you can see how that compares to other states. Next slide. I know we're getting some great questions in the chat about the SAVE program, but we wanted to run through some common questions for everyone as well. First, if a borrower enrolls in the SAVE plan, will they still qualify for PSLF or Public Service Loan Forgiveness after 10 years? The answer is yes. Qualifying repayment plans for PSLF or Public Service Loan Forgiveness include all IDR plans, including the SAVE plan. Now, if you don't know what PSLF is, don't worry, we will get to that later in the presentation. Second, is interest eliminated for all types of subsidized and unsubsidized loans, including graduate school subsidized loans, when enrolled in SAVE? And the answer is yes. The government covers any remaining interest for that month if the borrower is making their scheduled monthly payment. And finally, is there an income cap for the new SAVE plan? Although anyone can apply for the SAVE plan regardless of income, the monthly payment is calculated based on your income and family size. And so a monthly payment on the SAVE plan for those with higher incomes could end up being more than the 10-year standard plan. So we're going to talk about the loan simulator next, which is a way for you to be able to compare all those different repayment plan options to see what's the most affordable for you. Next slide. So as I just mentioned, SAVE will be the most affordable option for most borrowers, but we do recommend using the loan simulator to compare all options, as there are a number of different repayment options available to borrowers. And the loan simulator allows you to choose the plan that works best for your financial situation. The loan simulator is accessible on studentaid.gov, and once you log in with your FSA ID, it pulls in all of your loan information so that you can compare those plans really easily. Next slide. Now, once you've determined which plan works best for you, you can apply for an income-driven repayment plan at studentaid.gov. If the standard repayment plan is the best option, you're not going to need to apply for that. It's just those income-driven repayment plans that you need to apply for. When you apply online, you can provide approval for the secure disclosure of tax information so that we can automatically access your latest IRS tax return. All this means is you're granting permission for the IRS to share your data with us at Federal Student Aid. And granting this approval will save you lots of time since you won't need to manually enter or provide any income or family size information for both your initial application and your yearly recertification. So for all of these income-driven repayment plans, you have to recertify your income yearly. But if you provide that approval for the IRS tax sharing, you won't need to provide that yearly, and we will automatically pull it. Now, for borrowers who were on REPAYE previously or who did not provide that approval for IRS disclosure, you will need to recertify your income on a yearly basis. So for those borrowers, the department recently extended those recertification deadlines until November 1st, 2024. So borrowers shouldn't need to update their income information before then. Either way, if you're recertifying your income information or applying for a new income-driven repayment plan, you can do it all at studentaid.gov, but you will need to log in with your FSA ID to access the application. Next slide, please. Here are the links to be able to access the application, and my colleague is going to place them in the chat as well. Or maybe my colleague already did place them in the chat. Next slide, please. Okay, next we're going to talk about the payment count adjustment, which is a one-time program happening right now that helps borrowers maximize their time towards forgiveness. Next slide. Okay, under this one-time revision, borrowers will gain credit for certain past periods of repayment, forbearance, and deferment that would otherwise not qualify for IDR or PSLF forgiveness. So I'm going to say this again because it's really important. Under the one-time revision, borrowers will gain credit for certain past periods of repayment, forbearance, and deferment that would otherwise not qualify for IDR or PSLF. This change applies to all borrowers with Ed-held loans. So those direct loans and then Ed-held FFEL loans, including borrowers in default and Parent Plus borrowers. But commercially held FFEL borrowers and Perkins borrowers need to consolidate into the direct loan program by April 30th, 2024 to benefit from the adjustment. Now, you just have to submit that application by April 30th, and we'll talk about how later. But just to say it again, FFEL borrowers and Perkins borrowers can consolidate into the direct loan program by April 30th, 2024 to benefit from the adjustment. Next slide, please. Through the payment count adjustment, we will automatically recount borrower past repayment history to maximize your time towards forgiveness. So this slide kind of walks through what we will recount and how it will work. So the first column all the way on the left, we are going to recount any months in repayment status regardless of the payments made, the loan type, or the repayment plan. We're also going to count any time in repayment prior to consolidation on consolidated loans. And we're going to count some time or certain forbearances and deferments, which we'll get into in a bit. For those borrowers with loans that have accumulated time in repayment, once we do this calculation of at least 20 or 25 years, you will see automatic forgiveness depending on your loan type, even if you're not currently enrolled in an IDR plan. Now, borrowers, this is again, I'm repeating the same thing that was on the last slide, but it's so important. Borrowers who have commercially managed FFEL loans, Perkins loans, and then health education assistance or HEAL loans, those borrowers, and then other non-direct loans, those borrowers need to apply for a direct consolidation loan by April 30th, 2024 to get the full benefits of the one-time payment count adjustment. Finally, borrowers who made qualifying payments on direct loans that exceed forgiveness thresholds will receive a refund for your overpayment. Next slide. Now, here are the deferments and forbearances that will automatically count. So we're going to automatically count any long-term forbearances, which amount to either 12 months consecutively or 36 months cumulatively. We're also going to count deferments, except for in-school deferments prior to 2013, and we're going to count all economic hardship deferments other than unemployment deferments. We will also count some military-related forbearances and deferments. If you have forbearances that are less than that 12 months consecutively or 36 months cumulatively, don't worry, we're going to do a manual recounting process after we do this automatic recount, and we'll announce that process soon. So more to come on that soon. Next slide. Again, for borrowers with Perkins, commercially held FFEL, health program loans, or other non-direct loans, borrowers must consolidate before April 30th, 2024, next month, to gain access to the payment count adjustment. Even for borrowers with only direct or Parent Plus loans, you may still want to consolidate. And the reason for that is because by consolidating, you could get all of your loans on the same timeline. So for example, if you took out loans for your own schooling and then you took out Parent Plus loans, consolidating places all the loans on the earlier timeline and gets you to forgiveness sooner for all loans. Another example of this would be if you took out loans for undergrad and then again for graduate school, consolidating would again put all of those loans on the same timeline towards forgiveness earlier. And reminder to consolidate before April 30th, 2024 to gain access or to maximize your credit. Next slide, please. So here are a few things you should know just before you consolidate. So first of all, your principal balance might go up. When you consolidate, your outstanding interest gets added to your principal. But if you are consolidating to get to forgiveness sooner, this shouldn't make a difference. Your new consolidation loan will generally have a new interest rate. The new rate could be higher or lower for some of the loans. Again, though, if you're working towards that forgiveness sooner, it shouldn't really make a difference. If you consolidate before April 30th, 2024, you will not lose credit towards IDR or PSLF forgiveness. And the consolidation process takes 60 to 90 days. Next slide, please. So now we're going to dive into Public Service Loan Forgiveness, or PSLF. I know I've thrown that term out a couple of times so far, so now we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty details of this loan forgiveness program. Next slide, please. Public Service Loan Forgiveness is a forgiveness program for those borrowers who work in public service. Borrowers with 120 qualifying payments or 10 years on direct loans while working for a qualifying employer who have also applied to PSLF can see their loans forgiven. So I'm going to say that again. Borrowers with 120 qualifying payments, it's 10 years, on direct loans while working for a qualifying employer who have also applied for PSLF can see their loans forgiven. Don't worry, we're going to walk through what all of this means now, but it is 4 different items that you have to check off. So next slide, please. To gain access to PSLF, you must have a qualifying loan type, which includes all direct loans, including consolidation and Parent Plus loans. An important note for Parent Plus loans, Parent Plus loans, the forgiveness is granted to the borrower who took out the loan or the parent. So that the parent or the borrower is eligible for the loan, not the student whose name the loan is taken out in. For these uneligible loans, as a reminder, you can consolidate to gain access to the PSLF program. Next slide. Next, you must work for a qualifying employer. So this means both working full-time and for a qualifying employer. Full-time is 30 hours per week or more, or it's multiple part-time jobs for a qualifying employer that add up to 30 hours a week or more. And a qualifying employer can be any government or 501c3 nonprofit entity. There are some very limited exceptions, but the following employments do not qualify. Part-time work that does not add up to that full-time metric, volunteer work, work for for-profit entities, work for labor unions, or work for contractors. Next slide, please. Finally, borrowers must be on one of the following repayment plans to qualify. So they can be on a standard 10-year repayment plan or any income-driven repayment plan, including SAVE, PAY, ICR, and IBR. And if borrowers in certain periods of forbearance or deferment, those certain periods of forbearance and deferment can also count towards PSLF. The two to note, though, are in-grace or in-school deferment periods do not count towards public service loan forgiveness. And finally, borrowers who are enrolled in graduated, extended, or alternative plans also do not get PSLF credit for those times. Next slide, please. And finally, if you hit all of these different requirements, you need to apply for PSLF online. You can also apply via a paper app, but we do suggest using the online application. We have a new simplified form, and you can simply log in with your FSA ID, and the new form allows for digital signature. Remember, you're going to want to certify your employment yearly to make sure your qualifying monthly payment count remains up to date. Next slide, please. Finally, let's say you have loans in default. You can still access SAVE through a great one-time program called Fresh Start, which we're going to talk about now. Next slide, please. So this one-time program is to help defaulted borrowers. It's a one-time temporary program that offers every federal student loan borrower a path out of default. It provides some automatic benefits, but borrowers must enroll in Fresh Start to claim the full benefits of Fresh Start and get out of default. Borrowers who Fresh Start their loans will see restored access to federal aid and eligibility for other government loans. In addition, collections will also stop on their loans, which leads to credit report changes as well. And some borrowers even noticed increases to their credit scores as much as 50 points. Fresh Start also preserves the date of first delinquency and allows borrowers to gain access to IDR plans like SAVE and loan forgiveness programs, as well as short-term relief options like forbearances and deferments. Next slide, please. Now, there are multiple ways to sign up for Fresh Start via phone, online, or by mail. That's all listed right here on this slide. But regardless of how you're going to sign up for Fresh Start, you must take advantage before September 30th, 2024. Next slide, please. Finally, we wanted to share contact information for personalized questions or follow-up questions. So you can reach out to the Oregon Student Loan Ombudsman, Lane Thompson, or you can reach out to FSA Stakeholder Engagement. Both of our emails are found here. And now I'd like to welcome Mike Pierce, who's the founder and executive director of the Student Borrower Protection Center, to the stage to lead our fireside chat question and answer.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And thank you everybody for joining today or tonight, depending on where in the country you are. I am thrilled to welcome my friends Bonnie Luttrell, who is FSA's ombudsman and my co-founder at the Student Borrower Protection Center way back when, and my longtime former colleague from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, along with Lane Thompson, who is my home state student loan ombudsman, and was in the trenches with me when we were fighting for a student borrower bill of rights that created a job for her in Salem, Oregon, all those many years ago. So we have two wonderful, brilliant, really well-versed in the weeds experts here tonight. And we are really excited to get into it. So I have a whole bunch of questions, and I just wanted to let you know up front that while this webinar was going on, I asked the people of the internet to share questions with me, and I promised that I would read them to you. So some of these are mine, some of them are from the field here. But if there's anything else you guys want to say that's a little bit level set before we start doing Q&A, I don't know, Bonnie, if you want to start us off here?
Just that I believe you promised to read them Anchorman style, and so I am expecting that delivery.
I thought there was going to be a disclaimer, but we can do this instead. All right. Well, I want to start with some basics because I think that Rachel did an amazing job walking through the nuts and bolts of how all of these programs work. And I just want to make sure for folks that may not see themselves in the typical borrower's experience, there's a chance for them to get some advice about what happens with some of these edge cases. So a question that we get from borrowers all the time is one that we often hear from borrowers with grad debt who have older loans that were made by banks or private lenders like Sallie Mae through the FFEL program, maybe a decade ago or more. You guys talked a lot about the IDR account adjustment and how to get credit for loan forgiveness for older loans. What happens to somebody who has both of those loans? One might be 20 years old or 25 years old, and the others might be a lot newer, but for a lot more money. I guess maybe Bonnie, I can start with you with that one.
Yeah, so during the slide presentation, you saw a slide where Rachel had highlighted big, bold, consolidate by the end of April. When borrowers have loans on different schedules, the best thing they can do right now is to consolidate those loans. It will get them on the same schedule, and the borrower will get the benefit of their long time and repayment history across all of their loans, including their newer loans. So you can imagine being a parent who had loans for themselves and then being in repayment for years and years and years, and then taking out Parent Plus loans for their kids, which is unfortunately a situation we see every single day. Right now, through the account adjustment, if they consolidate all of those, we're going to treat them all as if they had been in repayment for 20, 25 years, and they will get the benefit of all of the loan forgiveness programs across all of their loans. Now, what happens after the fact? If they don't hit that deadline, if they don't get it in before the account adjustment, I really encourage them to continue to look into whether consolidation makes sense for them, because for many borrowers, it's still going to make sense because they're still going to get a weighted average benefit of time and repayment. So it's not going to be as good as the account adjustment. It's not going to have that full range and repayment period, but they will get a boost on those newer loans, and they'll get the bump towards forgiveness there.
And Lane, I know you and I have talked about dangling loans, borrowers that don't take those steps. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're hearing from Oregon borrowers, especially for folks that have gotten some debt cancellation, but maybe not everything?
Yeah, great question. So what we've seen is that for some folks who have all direct loans, they're getting some of them canceled and some of them not if they haven't consolidated. So one example is one borrower that I work with has gotten some loans canceled under the IDR account adjustment and still has some left over. She's pursuing PSLF. So it was a little confusing about the timeline for each of them. If she had consolidated earlier, she would have gotten that debt canceled under the account adjustment. So that's just kind of an example of why we want folks to consolidate and why we're really pushing that deadline.
And I've got a question now from the internet, from Marie Stephanopoulos, who asks, why is Wohila County Payments qualifying for PSLF under the waiver for January 2024, well after that program deadline was over?
So the waiver period ended in October, and we are seeing that borrowers, as we went into return to repayment, we know that there was a lot of mishandling of accounts, miscommunication related to getting borrowers on track. If a borrower raised their hand and said they wanted to enroll and save, their servicer may not have promptly enrolled them. To fix these accounts rather than going one by one for folks waiting to get a response in their complaint, we did give folks blanket credit across the board for a couple of the months leading into repayment. So without seeing the specifics of that account, it might be that it fell into that bucket. And so the borrower saying, well, I was late with my payment or something else happened. Why am I still getting credit? That could be what happened there. Also, I would emphasize that we have new PSLF regulations in effect now that are a lot more friendly than they used to be, and they make the program a lot easier to access. And so borrowers should start seeing us giving them more credit, not a lot of nitpicking about, you know, your payment being in this exact window. Did you make it on the fourth Friday of the third full moon? If borrowers, if they worked in public service and they made their payment, they're going to be getting credit.
I like that answer. It's a good answer. Okay, let's do another one from Twitter. Alex Hauser asks, why is it taking so long to get October 2023 through December 2023 to count for those seeking PSLF and who were placed in administrative forbearance because of Mohila's incompetence? Mohila says FSA is holding it up.
So this is a great time to talk about a little bit about the process so borrowers know who is doing which part of the loan servicing. So you make your payment to Mohila, you send your PSLF form in, they're doing the review. If your employer hasn't been established as a qualifying employer, that decision is coming to us to review. And in terms of if you're getting credit under the waiver, we're actually taking a look at your account, determining which months should qualify, and then we're sending that information back to Mohila to upload to your account. So when it comes time for actual loan discharge, Mohila's right. That is in FSA's, that's on FSA's plate. We are the ones that say, okay, these are the loans that are ready to go for loan forgiveness. But what I will say is common problems I see is that borrowers might have loans on different repayment schedules. So it is very common to have, like, especially if you have loans for undergrad and grad school, you might have a couple of months of forbearance on one loan and not on the other. And that would put them on different schedules such that some will hit 120 and some might still be at, 115, 116. You could also have, and then you could also, just the way we run the file, some might pop up sooner rather than later. So I encourage borrowers to take a look at their accounts, make sure everything there on the Mohila site says 120. And as long as that's the case, you should be getting your notice of discharge within a few weeks. We're not really, there were delays at the beginning with the waiver, but we're not seeing those delays anymore. So that tells me that there might be something else wrong with the account there.
Thanks, Bonnie. I have a question for you, Lane, now. We spent a lot of time talking about federal student loans tonight. Somebody on Twitter named Bort asks, he has private loans. What can be done to help him if he can't afford his private student loan payments?
Yeah, so the student loan ombuds in the state of Oregon does work with borrowers who have private loans as well as federal student loans. Unfortunately, the options for private student loans are just a lot more limited than what's available for federal student loans. So in most cases, there won't be the same types of repayment plans available. However, I have seen, for example, people get disability discharges on their private loans if they are totally and permanently disabled. So overall, the repayment options for private student loans are really, try to refinance to get a lower rate, maybe not the best option at this moment. But that's usually one thing that I would recommend. And then really just looking at other ways to be able to come up with that payment. Unfortunately, there's not likely to be other payment plans. Private student loans will let you go into deferment or forbearance under some circumstances. So you can certainly call your servicer and ask them what options are available.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I think that private student loan borrowers often get left behind here in this conversation. So it's great to have an advocate in Oregon looking out for them. All right. So next up, we have another question. This is from a member of the Debt Collective, and he wants to know, he filled out a student debt release tool application and is wondering what the status of those student debt release tool applications are that are on file with the Department of Education.
That's a great question from our friends over at the Debt Collective. So if you have read the news, or if you tried to email me during the period in which these launched and you had a delayed reply, it is because we did receive several petitions from the Debt Collective where borrowers reached out and said, these were some of their circumstances and they wanted to know what we were doing about debt relief. The answer is we're still doing a lot. There was the people who submitted these petitions were invited to share their stories through the public comment period during negotiated rulemaking. If you're not familiar with negotiated rulemaking, well, let me take a step back. The Supreme Court struck down the administration's efforts to offer broad-based debt relief, and so they're going through it through another means, using a different legal authority that is done through negotiated rulemaking, where they are proposing a new regulation that would offer debt relief under certain circumstances. The final rule there has not been published, but members of the Debt Collective have been invited to, and members who submitted through that petition have been invited to share their stories through that process. I will say, though, the way that information was collected, those folks emailed individually, but the tranche of data that I'm sure Debt Collective have, the department does not own that data, and so treating it as a group is a little bit tricky there.
Okay, I think that's a good answer. I appreciate you engaging with it. I have a couple more of my own questions. And the next one here, we often hear from parents that are stuck with Parent Plus loans. These are loans that are made directly to parents. They don't often include the same rights and protections as other kinds of federal student loans. What advice do you have for people with Parent Plus loans that might be interested in getting help, either through SAVE or through some other kind of IDR?
I don't, in the speaker view, Lane's head is really tiny, so I can't tell if she wants to go first.
You go first.
Sure. So Parent Plus borrowers through 2025 actually have the option to do what's called a double consolidation. They can consolidate. The Massachusetts AG's site actually has a great walkthrough. I would encourage folks to visit that, but they can consolidate their loans separately and then together in a way that would give them access to additional repayment options. But I do, aside from that, I do think it is worth mentioning that at the end of the day, Parent Plus borrowers don't have the wide array of options that other student loan borrowers have. In general, they can access PSLF and they can access income-driven repayment, but on a more limited scale. They can access what's called income contingent repayment, which is actually the most expensive IDR plan, and they have to get into that to get credit for PSLF moving forward. But huge but here, so pay attention. If you take nothing else away, you're a Parent Plus borrower. If you consolidate your loans before the end of April, it doesn't matter what repayment plan you are in, and if you are a Parent Plus borrower, you are probably in extended repayment because it is the only way Parent Plus borrowers can afford their loans. And that is generally not a PSLF eligible plan. But if you consolidate before the end, if you were close to getting PSLF, or you're there, and you consolidate before the end of April, you can get credit for all of those periods made under a different repayment plan, as long as you have the qualifying employment. Or if you've been paying on extended for a really long time, or you were steered into forbearance and have years of forbearance on your Parent Plus loans because they're not affordable. As long as you consolidate, you can get all of the benefits of these great programs we've rolled out. The account adjustment, the additional waiver benefits that carry over. And if you need more customized information for your situation, please reach out to Lane, reach out to my office. We want to help. We want to make sure you get the most affordable option that gets you towards your goal of loan forgiveness.
Thanks, Bonnie. Anything to add, Lane?
Yeah, of course, Bonnie did a great job covering it. I was just gonna really stress the consolidation benefits at this moment. Even though it might seem like the loan is still expensive or the payments are still expensive, that account adjustment is going to be really beneficial to a lot of people. So just really wanted to reiterate that aspect of it. Yeah, thanks.
That's great. And I think maybe we're gonna wrap it up now. I've answered all the questions that have come in from the chat and questions that have come in from the internet. Thank you guys so much for your incredibly detailed answers. and for being with us this evening. And obviously to Rachel for her incredibly detailed presentation, and for Rich Cordray for joining us to kick us off here, and of course for Attorney General Rosenblum for sponsoring this event, and for Kate for joining us. So if there are any other questions, I know that Rachel shared contact information for both Bonnie and Lane earlier. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.